I'm Ken, and this is Michelle, and who is also, and we'll have your at down at the bottom there or whatever. And so this is the podcast for why you should follow her. So, so there you go. Um, so really quick, you're in a jazz standards band.
Yes.
That's so cool. Okay, so what is? Okay, so like I watched Whiplash like a lot, and that's most of what I know about jazz. But is like
I
this
have not seen it, so I don't know.
really okay?
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask you about that because it's a really it's
Okay.
one of my favorite movies of all time. It's like probably not the best movie of all time, but it is my favorite. And
Oh man, all right. I gotta check that out. I'll try to remember. Yeah.
yeah, it's and it's about like jazz drumming, and I wanted to hear your take on it because a lot of professional musicians are very they have like very strong opinions on it one way or the other. So you said you're on the website, it said you're in a jazz standards band. So what is a jazz standard? Is that like the canon?
Yeah, so there's this thing called the Real Book, and oh, your mug is so awesome.
Oh yeah, my little brother got it for me.
I don't know who that is, but I like the expression on his face.
It's Shinji
Oh,
from he's the
nice.
guy from Evangelion.
Okay, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not very well educated on anime. I just saw Ghost in the Shell for the first time, so that goes to show you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like
That is
last
a
week.
classic. Um
Yeah.
in my mind, this all we don't have to talk about my anime opinions the whole time, but in my mind, Ghost in the Shell is a little bit overrated, but I do think
Oh,
that Evangelion is the anime that people would talk about it for 30 years and people are going to be talking about it in
okay.
another 100 years. So it's like one of the
Oh, okay.
yeah, in my
All
opinion,
right.
it's like yeah, if you could like if you only like watch one thing that I recommend or read one thing I recommend, it should be Evangelion. I don't like
Over Whiplash.
yeah,
Okay.
cuz it's also my
Oh
favorite
wow.
anime, but it's also a just sort of a cultural classic. It's like watching Citizen Kane or like 2001: A Space Odyssey, you know?
Yeah. Right. Gotcha. Yeah, we were talking about because you know, Ghost in the Shell is like a little bit pretentious, but I think it works, right?
Mhm.
I think it works within the context of what it's doing, and I very much enjoyed it. So I just thought it was like fun and funny that it was pretentious. Is that your criticism of it, or like what?
So no, my criticism, I guess, if I had any of it, was just that it's extremely strong in terms of aesthetics and mood
Mhm.
and theme. Um, but the first, I think, half, nothing really happens. And it's just allowing you a lot of like time to soak in the mood and the aesthetic, which is a very enjoyable experience. But I think that, and also the guy is very much about, I think, ooh, I want to say Mamoru Oshii, but I could be smoking crack. But he's very much about transhumanism, so it's very
Mhm.
much entertaining for him to sort of show us that world. But I think it could have been um, just integrated like the story and like the themes more into that as well. But it is phenomenal. It's just not when I think of like the greatest anime movies of all time, I would put like every Satoshi Kon above that, you know.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna check out Evangelion. I'm
Okay.
very curious now.
Right. It's
Cool.
very
Um.
it's very important that you watch the TV show and then watch the end of Evangelion because there's other movies
Oh,
that
okay.
basically remake it all. Because it's like the TV
Mhm.
show and then it's like the movie sequel. Because if you watch the rebuilds, they're trash and they're sort of remaking the whole thing, and they sort of remove all the nuance and everything that made it good. And
Oh,
yeah,
okay, so TV show and then movie.
yeah.
Is that
And the
okay?
movie is
Gotcha.
the end of Evangelion because it comes at the
Okay.
end, so it'll be
Okay.
helpful to remember that.
Cool.
But yeah.
Cool,
Anyways,
cool.
jazz standards.
Yeah, no, sorry. That was my fault because I got distracted by the mug. Yeah. So there's the real book, which has, I actually don't know how many. I think it's like 300 songs.
Oh wow.
Am I might also be smoking crack, so I don't know exactly how many. Um, yeah, it's got a lot of songs in it, and it's just kind of something that basically, if you are into jazz as a musician, and I have to give a big caveat here because I'm a singer, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
like trained in jazz. I just sing. So, it's much easier for me than somebody who actually has to do the hard work of learning all the chord charts and learning
Mm-hmm.
how to solo over them and doing all that stuff. But yeah, they basically you kind of memorize as many of those songs as you can, like the chord charts and all that stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
then you can just basically show up to a jazz jam and play and just jump in and play.
That's so cool.
So that's what's cool about the standards, right? And having that real book thing. And so basically, but our band basically we just have like maybe a set of 30 songs that we do, and then we'll just go to like parties and
Mm-hmm.
play and stuff like that. So
That sounds like a lot
mhm.
of fun.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean it's very fun. But yeah, it's like nerve-wracking, of course, but fun. Super fun. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Like I've been doing a little bit of music jamming myself as a drummer.
Hmm.
Because they have this thing here in Shreveport. It's called Manifest, and it's like
Hmm.
you just show up and there's like this jam session and anyone can just sort of hop in, and
Nice.
it's really fun. It's really fun. They go for like 4 hours, like every Tuesday. It's really cool. But a lot, it's like playing it. It's like, but and it's like since it's in public, we can't do covers. So everything, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of like local artists who are like, on the vocalist side who will like have like their lyrics written or they're really good like freestylers. So we'll be playing this weird like salsa type thing and then like people are like rapping over it. It's so much fun, but it's
Oh, that's awesome. So
yeah,
there's
yeah.
no actual like there's not like a structure. You
Nope.
just jump in and
You just
try to
jump
do
in. Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
really
but
awesome.
I was thinking it would be nicer if there was like, because it's like I don't know anything about like music theory or like what like people like the once or twice I like hopped on like the piano and they're like, "What key are you in?" And I'm like, "I don't know, dude."
That's like where I am. I'm like, oh, come
Yeah.
on. I know one key. C.
Well, it's I feel like when you're singing, it's I also if I get there and I sing, then it's like okay, well we can like you can like kind of hear the key and you can kind of like sing it and you can kind of like just hear that, you know, and
Hmm.
it's in a
Hmm.
way that it's like not as easy to do with like instruments, but it's
Hmm.
but yeah, but anyways, I was saying like the idea of having like a canon to where you could show up and you can improvise and you can like, have like a jam session that's, more like free flowing improv, but you do have like a shared bedrock of like knowledge is like really cool. And I wish, that would be something that I would really like to do. That's it.
What
It's really
genres
cool.
would you play in?
Oh, just anything, just sometimes like a
Yeah.
vocalist
Oh,
will come
cool.
up and they're like, give me something slow or like give me something fast, but it's just kind of people just kind of like play and then it's like well this it's like kind of staying around and it's like okay that song ended and then this one guy's like well I want to keep playing this bit and then someone's like well let me just like add this on there and then kind of like
Nice.
kind of like that but yeah that's really cool. Okay, I had other questions that were not just about jazz. Okay, so what's a minimum viable product because I have no
Oh
idea
gosh.
because like okay like
Okay.
I know
Yeah.
I know like nothing, well almost nothing about like the world of like business and startups and stuff. I'm like the layperson's layperson. So,
Yeah. Sure, sure. Basically it just means, let's say you have an idea, right?
uh-huh.
Let's say you want to create a community for musicians, right? um like, so a million little sub ideas could come from that, right? And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I want it to look like Discord, or I want it to have an iPhone app, or I want to be able to like just text my particular musician friends, and I want it to be, there's like a million things that could come out of that. So the
Mm-hmm.
MVP is basically, honing it down to what is the minimum set of features that express your idea.
Hmm. Okay. Because then I guess the idea is that like the other stuff can be added on like later after it's launched.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Nice. All right. And you said that so I was looking at some of like the apps that you make and that you've like worked on and stuff, or not just apps, but like projects that you've worked on. Um, it says that you made one about Car Ally. No, Home Ally. Car Ally was my idea. Fuck.
Oh, okay. Oh, awesome. So home element for the car.
Yeah, because I was looking at that
I
and I was like,
like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's like I have, and like a lot of people just like rent, and you kind of have a landlord that installs the air filters and all that stuff, and you just like don't really worry or care about it. But with like my car and stuff, it's always like someone's like, "When's the last time you had your tires rotated?" And I was like, "What is like every time I drive they rotate? Like what are we talking
Dude,
about?"
seriously.
So
No, yeah, I would use that.
yeah,
Have you looked into seeing if I feel like there has to be something like that. Maybe, I don't know. If there isn't, that is a great idea.
yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
for the viewers, the Home Ally is basically an app that keeps track of like things that are like, and I noticed this, I guess, especially with my car, is like it's like, oh, you have to remember like every like 6 months you have to rotate the tires or whenever it is. I should actually rotate my tires probably, but, like
Me too. I can't remember the last time. So,
yeah. But it's
yeah.
like it's like things that you have to do. Like the one that everyone remembers to do generally is changing the oil because that's like 3 months or 3,000 miles. It's not that you can kind of keep it somewhere in the back of your head, and there's like the sticker up there to remind you. But there's like a lot of
Hmm.
other things that you should like be checking on or like testing or replacing as you like go for best practices and stuff. And but it's all like it would be like it's like a weird time interval, so it's like hard to remember. And like the Home Ally app does that for like your home with like the air filters and stuff. I'm assuming for like homeowners. I'm guessing more so than other people,
Yeah, I
but
mean, I didn't get that one out. So, and this is
mm-hmm,
something we can kind of talk about,
mm-hmm,
is the idea of like actually birthing something is such a, I have so many, I have like definitely an app graveyard, which is like so many things that I've worked on, and then like gotten to 99%. And I've come recently to find out that that is like an ADD symptom. And I'm like, oh God, is that what I have? Um, but get everything to 99% and then actually like, okay, get it out, like get it out.
mm-hmm.
And Home Ally is one of those that's stuck it's in test flight. I don't even
Oh,
know if
okay,
you
okay.
were able. I don't even know if you were able to look at it, but yeah, because I actually haven't refreshed it in a little bit. So Home Ally is one of those. And I think it's a good one. I think it's a good idea, but I've had some other ones since then, the ones that I'm currently working on now, and so those are the
Mm-hmm.
ones that I'm working on. But I do like that one. There are some competitors that I suppose I would be worried about, but this is an interesting one because the competitors that are there, I think I got scared off because one of the competitors was like from I think it was like Angie's List made a version of the app, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what Angie's List is? Oh, okay. So Angie's List is like a huge platform for finding handymen, basically
Okay.
if something's going wrong in your house or whatever. So they made a version of Home Ally, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
found it and I was like, "Oh, so that kind of made me like be like, "Oh, well, if Angie's List already has one, I don't know that I want to keep going on this." But it crashes all the time. So
Mm.
it's like, is that enough to launch your own competitor, I don't know, right?
I
But
think
yeah, that
so.
was
I have no tolerance for things that slightly annoy me. So like, yeah, I get it.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
yeah, there's so many like things that I think with like phones and stuff. This is kind of like a sideline, but like I just got like a toaster oven and like the nubs for like the minutes are so small and it's like it was I was struggling to figure out it's like okay, how do I get like 4 minutes versus 5 minutes? And I was like I'm just going to crank it all the way and then set the timer. And I was setting it on my phone at first and then I realized it was actually easier to just set it on the kitchen timer in meat space and stuff just because like phones are like not that fast. I mean they're fast, but it's like not like having it in physical meat space, you know.
Like you mean like a little egg timer you have?
Well,
Or...
it's like it has sort of like an egg timer built in on the toaster oven itself, but then we have like
Okay.
on our oven we have a digital timer
Okay.
that works like with the oven and stuff. So,
Yeah, yeah, totally,
yeah.
totally. Yeah, there's a lot of like ways in which, the phone has done an amazing job of being the portal
Yeah.
with which we interact, right, with everything. But there are
Mhm.
certain little discomforts and things that, oh, are we going to move to glasses? I don't know.
I hope
Or
not
are you
because I still miss buttons. I hate the touchscreen. I miss buttons, dude.
really?
Yeah. I mean, for
Oh
scrolling it's
man.
better, but like yeah, no, like there's no it's like there's no with like typing I hate Steve Jobs is in hell because he took away my physical keyboard. Like I was so fast on the physical keyboard when I had like the old like dumb phone and it was like the slide off and it would like slide out and you had like a horizontal QWERTY thing and you could just go
The BlackBerry? Or
kind of BlackBerry was horizontal and the one I had was vertical, but either one it's
oh, okay.
like and even I have like big hands or like fat fingers, right? But it's like you can like all these like I've had like the smartphone for like 10 years and it's never been like I've never had an experience even with like swipe typing. I would like take away the swipe typing and give me back the buttons, you know. So I
I
think
love that you hate him. I'm the only developer who also hates him. Now I hate him because he took away Flash from me.
yeah, that's
Do
also
you
messed up.
do
Yeah.
you remember
Oh
Flash?
yeah. Oh yeah. And like
You play those games?
oh yeah. I was big on Neopets when I was a kid, you know, and
Oh yeah.
that's how you made your bread for your pets. Was the was all these like flash games like rip off of like not Neo Geo but the Bubble Bobble or whatever, you know, and all these little flash games and just animations too, you know. Like
Yeah. I loved them.
I was always on like the diet Newgrounds sites because Newgrounds was blocked by the library computers
Oh,
because it technically was a pornography site. Like you could put pornography on there if you wanted to, technically.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, not that's not
Oh,
what
weird.
most people used it for. It's not like what the culture
Yeah.
was, but that is, you know, so they blocked it in the libraries, but there would all be all these, you know, diet like websites that would just like rip a lot of Newgrounds content that I would like go to see like stick fights and stuff, you know.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I miss those days. I mean, I think that in the end, um, people decided that that type of interactivity is not fun. Not that it wasn't fun, but that it wasn't useful, I
Hmm.
guess. Right? I'm guessing that's why everyone was okay with getting rid of it.
I mean, I remember HTML5 was sort of its like
Hmm.
replacement. I think because I
Yeah.
think I was still on Neopets when they sort of started transitioning away from Flash into HTML5, and I remembered that it worked better, and especially on like the slower computers, and it was like less buggy. Um, so like if I think like if they had, you know, if all the things actually had transitioned over, and every like animation and like you know stick figure guy was like, okay, let me just like port this or like recreate this in like HTML5, then that wouldn't be like as bad. But I don't know. It was I don't know. I guess I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe it was the developer experience then. I
Mm-hmm.
once Flash died, I moved on. But I wonder if like, yeah, for developers who were making the games in Flash and all that, they were just I never tried to make a game in HTML5, so I don't know. Like they were just I think everybody just gave up and moved on, I guess.
Well, it wasn't
Yeah.
as it was sort of like I want to say it was like the heyday was sort of over by the time Flash
Hmm.
got canned. It
Hmm.
wasn't like that like Newgrounds was at its height and its like peak when they sort of came in. I want to say
Hmm.
even like the adpocalypse with like YouTube and stuff that killed a lot of animation on YouTube where they were like they switched the monetization to watch time over view count. So then it just sort of crushed the ability for animators to make money because it's like it takes so much. It's like you can have like people like Ego Raptor or like whatever make like really popular videos that a lot of people watch, but they're just like a few minutes long because it's animation. It takes a lot of work versus like a podcast or like a stream or
Oh
like
wow. I
a
didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was like a huge. I want to say 20. I don't want to get the date wrong. I have no idea when, but sometime between like 2012 and 2018, I think. But yeah, that happened, and but yeah, but I don't know. I think maybe apps were like the successor because you could have more control over it. I think, and it was
Hmm.
also like on the phone, so and you could have it like offline and stuff, and just sort of incorporate way more ads into the experience. And like, well, it was like yeah, because like Flash games weren't really pay to play. You couldn't really have
Mm-mm.
DLC in Flash games, could you? Like I don't.
No, I don't remember people doing that. It was more like,
Yeah,
yeah, just like visit the website and have
yeah.
fun, you
I
know.
think there was maybe some MMOs that sort of ran on Flash that had some pay to play elements, I believe. But for the most part, yeah. So like, but then with like an app, you could put ads in the game. I don't know. I'm just
Mhm.
trying to like reverse engineer all this. How were you a Flash developer at that time? Were you like working in
Oh, that's how
Flash?
I got started. That's how I got
Really?
started like many years ago. Yeah, like many, many years ago. And yeah, I enjoyed it, but I actually think that I it kind of put me in the wrong direction.
Really?
Because yeah, because I think I was like distracted by what the thing that I was doing was I was working for a marketing agency. And so we
Mm.
would
Mm-hmm.
build like experiences for our
Mm. Mm-hmm.
clients, right?
Okay.
So one was like Leverage the TNT show. Do you remember that show? So it was
What
a
was it
show on
about?
TNT and it was like about like it was like a heist show.
What?
Yeah. Like it was a show about basically like they just pull off heists every episode or something.
Was it like fiction or was it like reality TV or?
Yeah, fiction,
Okay.
fiction.
Okay. 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 Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean I didn't watch it
Mm-hmm.
except for, basically because I was making the game and we made like 12 mini games as
Oh
part of
wow.
like an experience like some sort of like weird experience, experiential thing for the fans of the
Mm-hmm.
show to like visit the site and like, and that was what I did for a living and I thought it was really fun and it was horrible in terms of like my mental health and like like working crazy hours and all that but like it was really fun and I thought that's kind of what I wanted to do and I think it just I didn't realize that I didn't know anything about products I didn't know anything about and that's really what now I'm like oh man if I had just gone down that path I just was distracted basically for 10 years doing something that was just kind of I suppose a little frivolous,
Mm-hmm.
fun, but frivolous, and like and yeah, and not biting the bullet and saying, okay, well, I'm gonna be a game developer. Like that's where I want
Mm-hmm.
to, you know what I mean? Instead doing this
Hmm.
kind of like weird half in, half out thing with Flash, right? But it was fun. I mean, it was fun and that's just how it goes. But yeah, it was an interesting time for sure.
Okay. What did you do in the 10 years between? So it sounds like the timeline is you worked on that, and then there was like 10 years where you did something else, and then now you're where you are.
No, no, no. I would say that so I was doing Flash stuff
Hmm.
for like 3 to 4 years and kind of burned out pretty hard, and then went and traveled through South America for a bit. And while I was in South America, Steve Jobs killed Flash. And yeah, and then yeah, yeah, and I was like, "Oh, what am I gonna do when
You
I
should
get
have hired
back?"
some Contras to take him out.
Right, there you go. Um, and uh, and then I there was still obviously like enterprise moves, like business
Hmm.
moves way slower, right? So there were a lot of people still using something called Flex, which was based on top of the Flash ecosystem, and so
Hmm.
I was able to get work once I came back as a Flex developer, and then in at that company, got lucky there as well. They transitioned me over to iOS development, so that's where I learned
Okay. Okay.
iOS development. Yeah,
So the 10-year detour is basically not doing games, is what you're saying.
yeah. Just saying that, like, I feel like my 20s I spent kind of maybe a little bit misguided, right? Not knowing, not really understand. I was a philosophy major in college, so
Oh, okay.
just completely irrelevant.
Well, you're
Right?
gonna like Evangelion then.
Okay, good, good. And now you can
Yeah.
see why I enjoyed Ghost in the Shell as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, so like that I didn't know the first thing about business, right? And I was kind of like, oh, should I be, because with philosophy, all you can do basically is become a professor. So, but I
Hmm.
didn't want to just like stay in school for the rest of my life. So I was like, let me take a break and maybe I'll go back to school afterwards or whatever. And then while I took that break, I was like, I really like computers. Let me see what's going on. But because of that, I mean, I didn't know anything about business, didn't know anything about, and I think that if I had known a little bit about what it means to be what business is, or even anything like about, even had studied computers in school, then I would have known more about, oh, okay, maybe that path was not the right path, right?
Mm, okay.
Or it was, yeah, but I mean,
Okay.
it's
So, so what are your? So I guess I'm a little confused. So like, I thought like basically what you're doing now is like software development, right? And like developing projects.
yeah.
Is that the wrong
Yeah.
path? Do you wish you were doing something else, or am
No,
I just
no,
getting
that's what I'm
confused?
saying. No, no, no. Yeah, I think what I mean is that, sorry, I guess I should have been a little bit more clear. I talk about like Flash and this kind
Mm-hmm.
of like more advertising marketing slash world that's where I cut my teeth. That's a little different from like building products,
Oh,
building
it's
apps,
more the
building
so you're saying like
websites.
the communication side, the business side, that sort of side versus the actually like making
Yeah.
things and developing
There's
things
it's
side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
like
Okay. Okay.
agency work. There's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
agency work, and then there's like building products,
Yeah.
right? And
Okay.
then
That
and
makes
I
sense.
didn't build products until Steve was like, no more Flash for you. So
Okay.
yeah.
So you said you're a philosophy major. Does that have anything to do with why you call yourself an alchemist on your website?
I um
Because I was very
maybe
curious.
um um yeah, maybe. I think that it's funny because I loved philosophy when I was in school.
Hmm.
And now again, and I think this is the theme of the conversation. It's like Michelle's regrets. That's like my friend makes fun of me. She's like, "Let's just talk about your regrets again."
That's so mean. What? That's such a rude thing to say.
No, no, it's fine. It's trust me, it's
I mean, I didn't say
okay.
it's not funny, but like,
But no, so but not, and again, I'm not. I actually don't regret my years in philosophy, but I
okay.
think I was just very misguided. I was just a little, again, misguided. Um, not understanding. my feelings and trying to find the answer through philosophy,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, and yeah, and you're not going to find it there. I know we have a lot of philosophers in Teapot, but you are not going to find it there. And it is fun, and it is fun to solve word puzzles, and it is fun
Mhm.
to spar, and it is fun to like do
Mhm.
all that stuff. And this, I will never stop doing it, and I'm super annoying in any argument, or I will always be. But it is not going to solve your emotional problems.
Yep.
Um, and so I think that what I'm trying, and Teapot has been really like helpful for me as well, because I didn't know about spirituality until I started reading it or like learning about it through Teapot, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I was raised Catholic, so I knew whatever you want to call that is, right? But that was not something that I was interested in.
Mhm.
Um, and then once I went through and learned a lot about psychology and learned a lot about all that stuff, um, once you're kind of getting better, then it's time for spirituality, And I
Hmm.
guess that is my kind of long-winded answer to when,
Mhm.
when you say alchemy, it's kind of using all those three facets to
Yeah.
kind of better your existence.
That's really
Yes.
cool. I understand.
Yeah.
I was going to bring up um they couldn't put it on a random podcast if it wasn't true, but there's this guy who was basically talking about this alchemist from I think the 17 or 1800s, and he was basically theorizing that if you basically abstracted language out to the like most, I guess, rudimentary mental motions or whatever, then you could create like a universal language that was sort of perfect. And the guy in the podcast was actually theorizing that that was sort of the proto beginnings of programming language, where language is all
Oh,
just abstracted and functional, and as well as like I was going to bring that up as well as but also like what you were saying about how it's sort of like how you feel you're sort of like a philosopher and a psychologist and a spiritualist. I think that is very like Jungian. I think Carl Jung sort of thought as alchemists as proto psychologists, like where
mhm.
like psychology and like the study of the soul wasn't sort of separated from um, spiritual and the scientific. So I think that's really cool.
Yes, and I love that man.
You love Jung?
Yes,
He's
yes.
great.
Yeah, exactly. Michelle's regrets not knowing about Young when I was younger. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely
Mm-hmm.
changed my life in many ways. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I have no idea how long it's been off. Hopefully not very long, um, but it could be long.
Well,
Either way, I've enjoyed talking to you, and that's all I really give a shit about. So
cool. Yeah, it wasn't as nerve-wracking as I thought it was going to be. I was
good.
really scared. I was really scared, but it's cool. It just feels like a conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's nice.
good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Um, so the next tweet we have is oh, it's Peak. I love Peak. It's a Piquant Parvenu.
Yeah.
She's good because it's like she has her display name is Peak. She always has the same profile picture. It's super distinct. You can't miss her, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So basically, she talks and she says,
It's kind of a long one.
oh yeah,
she's kind of talking about how she's just talking about how her manager managed her in like a really nice and considerate way. And I was just yeah, you can read it if you want. It's just kind of long, but
that's okay.
um
I'll just put it on the screen. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so this is just something I guess that you like related to as a manager.
Yeah, it's just it is just beautiful to see. Like it is. Um, I'm a manager that, and I suppose I find it beautiful because that's what I want to do, right? But
Mm-hmm.
a manager that takes into like learns, is learns who they are managing and understands how they work, right? How they not just like business wise, but also psychologically, and is there for them and is there to help them, right? And that doesn't scale, right? Which I think is something that I believe would be a challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, if I were to, you know, maybe go back to management, I would want to learn that. I would want to understand how to scale, a compassionate organization, you know. Um, but yeah, I do think that getting to know the people that work under you and like just trying to, you know, work around trying to understand how to deliver feedback to them in a way that will be, that won't, make them make them scared, or you know what I mean, because scared people don't do good work. They don't
Yeah.
ask questions, they
Yeah.
don't they don't admit to mistakes. They don't There's all these things, and it's like, and the fashion these days is to rule with fear, and it's like, well, there's going to be a lot slipping through the cracks there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And because it's like, I think, I guess like, I don't know. I was talking, I think, Bungo Dad had a thread the other day where he was asking for leadership advice, and I was like talking about it because I had thought about this a lot when I was younger, because I was, when I was, I was like making short films and also working at Walmart. So I was like trying to be a leader in terms of like a director, writer, producer. And then, one second, let me get some water. And then, but then I was also, experiencing really poor management at Walmart. And,
Hmm.
like I would have a lot of different managers, kind of get punted around, but they were all bad. So I just
Oh
thought a lot
no.
about it. And one of the
Hmm.
things I was thinking is that, I think, and I said this to Bungo, I was like, yeah, people are a lot more emotional than they're like willing to admit. Like, people have an emotional connection to their work and wanting to do good and stuff. And they won't like say this or whatever because they don't want to be like weird or like childish or like easily exploitable. But like, I feel, people are like super emotional about their work. And it is like, like, you know,
It's what you do with most of your day.
yeah, like if you paint like the psychological damage it takes from half the day spent painting the roses red and the other half painting them white. Like if and like okay, but if you just painted them red the whole day, you'd feel a lot better, right? Not because switching to white paint is like harder, but it just makes it feel all pointless, you know.
Yes,
And it's like you need
yes.
some sort of like sense, even if it's totally disconnected from you, that like there's a point to what you're doing. And there's so many times on like movie sets or like poor jobs I've had where I was like, they're like, hey, by the way, we want you to do this, and I was like, so Rose is back to red. Hey, don't worry about it.
Yeah, of course. And I think that is something that, exactly, you have to do it, but it matters so much when your manager like sees that and says, "Hey, I'm sorry." You know?
Yeah, yeah,
At least I think so, right? And
no, yeah,
acknowledges that instead of just, oh, just do it and not realizing, "Hey, that was a hit to your morale."
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And like maybe we need to kind of compensate for that in some other way
yeah.
later,
And one
right?
thing my mentor from the military taught me, he's like, morale is extremely important. Even in like the military, it's like, where you're literally just like, don't necessarily have like the same like basic, not human rights, but it's like you're basically your property of the military. You can't just clock out and you can't just quit and go home, right? That's a crime. You're here, it's like,
Yeah,
you're basically here as like a tool to like execute a job and like, do this or whatever. But it's like, so even in the most, systematically like, I mean, I guess not, it's not dehumanizing necessarily, but it's like instrumentalizing. It's like even then morale is extremely important, you know, and just like across all branches. That's just something where
It
it's
sounds
like,
like,
yeah,
especially in a situation like that, right? Because you're,
you might be right.
yeah, because like at least in
I never
like
thought
the
about that.
corporate world, right? In a corporate world, there's a semblance of, we care about you and we want we want to further your career, and we're investing in you. Whereas like, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I guess in the government in the military, they might be more forthright about being like, no, we're using you. you know? So, so,
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's a
guess.
that's a really good point. I'll have to think about that. I haven't even thought about that. Or like maybe it's like the more stressful or the more difficult job it is, then the more important morale is. Because it's like all the stress and the hardship and the difficulty is like just like beating you down, so you need morale to like push them back up. You know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, basically, what is it but to do work for someone else is removing your agency, and I think people don't really acknowledge that. That it is a price that we pay when we
Mm-hmm.
go to work for someone else. And it
Yeah.
hurts, and we need to
Yeah.
acknowledge that, and we need to kind of like say, well, I appreciate you because thank you for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And as like sort of like more of a cowboy now, where I can't just be like, okay, I'm taking the day off and I'm gonna edit my movie that I'm working on or whatever. I do, it does. I think if you have a lot of like projects that you just like do like for yourself on your own time, then it really sort of like highlights the difference between like what work like could be, because it's like, okay, this is work, it's like it's rewarding and it's meaningful, but it's not like fun. But this is like work, but it's like something I'm trying to do to like, like do this or whatever, because I'm doing it because I want to. And then you're like, you go do something even maybe like similar for somebody else, and it could just be like miserable because of, yeah. It's like I think
Mhm.
Dr. Kaczynski called that like the power process. He was like that like humans have like a psychological need to feel like they have like power over their environment and over their day, and that industrial society is sort of like removes that, because in order to like function you just have to be sort of a cog in the machine, versus like a hunter gatherer in his mind is like, okay, well, I'm hungry, we need food, I'm going to go out and hunt, but I'm going to control what time I wake up. I'm going to control where I go hunt. I have like my weapons that I made, and this is like my land, and I'm going to go, you know, and that was sort of like, and he thought that sort of like hobbies, like math or philosophy or chess, were just sort of psychological substitutions to, because we had that part of the process removed.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about Ted Kaczynski?
Yeah, he's a doctor.
That's amazing. You didn't say Ted Kaczynski, you said Doug. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool. That's
I was
very
hoping you
cool.
would catch that.
That is very cool. I have read some of his stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was
Mhm.
at the point in my life where I read it. I typed in Unabomber, and then YouTube auto completed Manifesto audiobook.
Oh, nice.
Because that was when I was like working at Walmart. It's like YouTube is like, we know what path you're going
Oh,
down.
oh my gosh, that whole thing. I love going down rabbit holes, and
Hmm.
so what do you think? Do you think that they gave him they ultured him?
So on the first glance, his writing, his manifesto, is sort of logically airtight. I read it and I couldn't find like a single like flaw in his thinking. Obviously, I disagree with his conclusions at some point, so there must be something that I'm just like not understanding. But I mean, you could just say like the value trade off of wanting, the safety and longevity of industrial society compensates for the psychological satisfaction of that. Or that, we're in a situation where you can go out. I mean, when he went into the woods, they found him, like industrial society found him, and that's why he started blowing things up, is because, people he was living in a cabin in the woods, and then one day he saw construction and like people were like coming in on him, and he was like, I can't take it anymore. But he could, if he wasn't just basically being supported by his family, he could have actually gone native. And there are people who have gone like full native and stuff. Like there's this guy who was on Joe Rogan. He went to a national park in Alaska and he built a cabin, and I don't think he stayed there like 12 months out of the year,
Is
but it was
that,
like
are there places where you can do that legally though? I
no,
mean, probably no, no.
no, he
Okay,
broke
okay.
the law.
Yeah. Right,
But
right. Checking, just checking, just checking.
yeah, but like places, especially in like Russia or like not America,
Hmm.
so there's like I understand him feeling like hopeless and dejected and stuff, but there are still plenty of actual legitimate hunter gatherer societies where he could have entered. But I was I at some point I was sort of like halfway through Wendigoon's sort of like overview of him, and it was really
Mm.
interesting how much sort of looking at the facts of it has described by his like family and like what actually happened, how what he said and what he didn't quite line up. Now to actually answer your question, did he get MK
Mm.
Ultra? He was part of the MK Ultra experiment at
All right.
Harvard, and that's just a historical fact. Like, did they intend for him to do that? I don't see how that would benefit them. Um, like with the, if you read, well, I mean, I'm assuming I haven't read Chaos by Tom O'Neill, but I watched him talk about it for like 3 hours on Rogan. But in that, basically, he was saying that there was efforts by the CIA through MK Ultra to sort of agitate race relations and stuff, which makes sense
Mm.
because that was sort of like I think there was like trying
Right,
to
weren't didn't someone say that, who was the guy that killed Sharon Tate?
Marilyn Manson. No, not Charles Manson. Fuck, I always get that mixed up.
That's great. Marilyn Manson's like, yes.
God damn it.
Um, uh, I feel like I saw something about someone was floating that Charles Manson might have been influenced or something too, in the same vein, right? Trying
Yes.
to incite.
So Tom O'Neill's actual book was Chaos was about how Charles Manson was basically working for the CIA and how his yeah
Mm,
because and it's really I think like the thing that really sells it for me is that Tom O'Neill was just an investigative beat journalist. He didn't believe a
hmm.
single conspiracy theory, and then Rolling Stone had him do like I think a 30-year retrospective on the Manson murders in the 90s, and he's like, I don't know why you want me to do this. Everything to say has already been said. And then he looks into it and he's like, oh, none of this adds up. And so he just by doing like beat journalism and like going to the
Mm,
places and actually tracking down the sources and stuff, he he uncovered a lot of previously totally unknown details and facts about Manson's life because his parole officer was a psychologist in the MK Ultra experiments. He did get hauled before
mm,
Congress, and he was sort of moonlighting in theory as his parole officer. And he would like because Charles Manson was in and out of jail like dozens of times from like when he was like a teenager basically until the Manson murders, and he
mm.
he would like be like arrested for like some sort of petty crime, but then they would pick him up in like Mexico, and then then like the guy would come in and say basically talk the judge into just letting him walk on parole, even though he was like totally like a flight risk. Like they got him in Mexico, but then the MK Ultra scientist who just happens to be working as a parole officer comes in and he's like, listen, like come on, you know, and like
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. There's a lot of that stuff. I mean, and I like to, if I hear something weird, then try
mm-hmm,
to follow it up myself and try to confirm it myself.
mm-hmm.
But obviously you can't do that with everything.
That's true.
But it definitely it makes you think a lot about
Yeah,
history and also what's going on today and
yeah,
what kinds of weird operations are going on today.
yeah. I could
So
talk for a very long time about that, so I'm gonna not talk about that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Definitely. That's fine.
it's a little
Yeah.
too far off. But yeah, um,
Hmm.
tweets. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
um, okay, so Grave Unfurling, love her. Said
Yay.
oh, she mentioned what's good ATX.
Hmm.
Oh, and then she was basically she linked what's good ATX, and then she was like saying, why doesn't DC have a website like this?" Which is like it's
Right,
exactly what
right.
I thought. I was like, why doesn't Shreveport have a website like this? This is so awesome. Like,
Well, hopefully. So yeah, I'm working on a website that basically helps you, you can go on there and you can type like I'm feeling kind of sad today, and then it'll show you like an Austin event that might line up with that. Like maybe like, hey, well, you want to listen to some blues music? That seems like it might work.
mm-hmm.
And that's currently what it does. I have the ability also to like if you want to say, hey, I want you to notify me anytime there's like a jazz show, or I
Okay,
want you to
okay,
notify me anytime there's like a shopping event or whatever. So I have that ready as well. And I made a local Austin newsletter as well, which is doing really
okay.
good. And yeah, I love it. And I mean, I think for me, it's like I love Austin. Austin saved me. I'm originally from New York,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, but I've been here for like 12 years in Austin. And I just, I feel like it's still really hard to find, like there's so many amazing things happening, but
Mm-hmm.
people don't know that they're happening, right? So this is my way of helping with that.
Yeah.
And I do think that it could expand to other, there's no reason it couldn't expand to other locations. But yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
me it's just important to do it for Austin. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that um especially here, because the arts are in danger here for sure,
Really?
you know yeah, so it's like because the city is getting so expensive, like I'm
Oh,
friends
okay.
with a lot of musicians and a lot of artists, and they're all leaving. They just can't
Oh,
afford
wow.
it.
Okay. Wow.
So, yeah. And so, I think, but it doesn't have to be that way. I think there's a lot of money coming into the town,
Mm-hmm.
and these people would be spending it if they knew it was going on, but the
Yeah.
scenes are not connected. So,
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I know that, especially after like Elon, there was a huge like influx of people, and Joe Rogan's probably responsible for at least like a third of them. But
Yeah, well, I'm sure, like, I'm sure that there's a lot of people here who are here because of Joe and Elon, and would
yeah.
love to, like, go to these awesome, interesting parties and theater experiences, and
Mm-hmm.
they just don't know about what's going on. And also, I just think, yeah, artists in general, we deserve more money. Like, there's no reason, you know what I mean? There's no reason that we cannot be patronized again,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think yeah, it's just really cool. It's also like because like I've definitely been there where I'm like, okay, I need to be like getting out of the house. I need to be like doing stuff. I need to be around people. I need to be like like doing something, right? And like, um, Facebook has been like good for that, but I mean, it just having something that would like something that's a much less it's like less friction just makes it like easier because I feel like that there's like so much like friction on like the phone nowadays and like the internet nowadays. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think people are kind of stuck doing whatever. It's very hard to pry people away from
Yeah.
their homes, and from their screens and all that. But like if, the more it can be personalized to like what do you want, that might
Mm-hmm.
actually pull you out and going to see people and like interacting with people again. Hey, if we're going to use technology, that's what I think it should be for,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So.
That's really cool. Um. Oh, here's a good one. What does healthy femininity look like to you? By Mimi. And excuse me, who is always recognizable because of the little symbols next to her name and how it's a short name. A1, no notes. And you said, probably wouldn't be the person to ask, but I've been thinking about this for a while. The words that come to mind: rest, slowing down, luxuriating, an energy that invites you to stay and relax a little while. Interesting.
How come you got that inflection with the luxuriating? What was happening there?
I don't think I've ever said that word out loud before. So,
Oh, yeah, no, you said it perfectly. Yeah.
okay, okay. What can I say? I'm a natural.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I feel like so I am me and I think another kind of a small group of other women on Twitter, I think feel a little bit like we've been disconnected from our femininity. I've been disconnected from my femininity my whole
Hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And I am trying to learn um how to be feminine again. And I think it might be a little too late for me to do that, to be honest. It's hard because the look on your face is great. Um, I think what I mean by that is that, there's so much in me that's entrenched, right? Ideals, aesthetics, um, models of who I want to be that were formed when I had very male models in my head, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
male ideals, right? And so it might be a little too late at this point to kind of start switching them over to,
No.
I mean, I can try, but it is still really difficult for me. It is still, I still am not, it's still not something that I even find very attractive in terms of like what I want to do for myself, right? I don't like seeing myself as super feminine. I don't like thinking of myself that way, but I think it's good for me, you know. And yeah, I find the whole thing fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah. So that's kind of what that tweet, and that was like right after something we haven't really talked about much, but like I owe a lot of my mental health repair to ketamine infusions that I did a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was kind of something that came up through a session, was kind of this, oh, what does it mean to be feminine? The masculine energy is very rushing, you know, breaking forth,
Mm-hmm.
conquering, like, and I very much identify with that energy. And it's really hard for me to rest. It is really hard for me to just, I can't even sleep. Like, I don't sleep, like I still even have trouble doing that.
Huh.
So,
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think it's totally obviously not too late for you. I think that's silly. Um, and that's just silly. But um, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Um, hmm. Yeah.
I do need to, if even if it's not for, even if I never get to the point where I'm, hanging up curtains and, like, I don't know what do girls do.
From what I
I don't
see, from what I see,
know.
complain about men on the internet.
Oh
I'm
God.
joking. I'm
Oh, maybe
joking. I'm
that's
joking.
what
I'm joking. I'm
maybe
joking.
that's what I need to start doing, man.
Hey, I have some accounts you could emulate on that. No, I'm
Oh my God.
joking. That's that's a mean joke, and I'm being nice, so that's not true. Um, but no, like I think okay, well, I think something that especially like Young would say is that there is no ideal balance of masculine and feminine energies, and everyone has a certain amount of masculine and feminine, and you know, it is good to be in like harmony and to have balance, but that doesn't mean like 50-50, right? Like there's I think a lot of like traits people are just sort of like lopsided and in terms of a
Yeah.
lot of traits. And I think that instead of trying to make yourself the sort of Aristotelian like golden mean where you're like 50th percentile in every trait. Just like figuring out like what works and what your like soul is telling you that you need to do and stuff, and just kind of like following that. And then you're because also it's like masculine and feminine, they're not entirely like objective traits. They're not like, they're sort of like more I guess like symbols, or like how we like conceptualize of it. So I don't think that yeah, I don't think that you need to be like worried. Well, not yeah, I don't think you need to worry.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I think that's a good point too. Like, what is it? What do these energies really represent? Right?
Yeah.
Are they really just models that we're using to kind of
Yeah.
organize our thoughts better? Or, but there also seems to be something very primal about the way that people react and people relate and people, and not ignoring that either, and not saying that's not, I'm just going to ignore that part of me, or
Yeah.
I'm not going to look at that part. um yeah, so I think I'm kind of in a place right now where I'm trying to understand, finding out, finding my identity, cementing my identity, and trying to understand how much, being okay, maybe being okay with that I have some masculine excesses or whatever it is, and being like, that's just me, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that just me, or is it something that I need to work on? I think that's a question for me. Yeah.
Um, I don't think that. Um, I don't think that like. I know what I'm gonna say, but I'm also trying to figure out if it's like true. I don't know. I guess there's some part of me that I don't think that it's like, if you're like if you're like don't have enough feminine energy in your life, that you need to cut back on the masculine. That seems like backwards. It feels like if you don't have enough femininity, or if you're not expressing the feminine aspects of yourself, then instead of also repressing the masculine aspects of yourself, you should just like
Mm.
learn to express the feminine aspects, because it's not like a race.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And it's like you were saying, it's about balance, and finding what balance works for you, right? It's like, if
Yeah.
I'm happy the way I am, then
Yeah.
I don't need to change that. But if there are issues, which I do have certain issues, meaning, like, I think one of the biggest ones is resting, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I do need to rest. I do need to figure out at some point what does, how to do that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Me too,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. And I also, when you were talking about like being a manager, and like how you, that sort of like was an avenue for you to like help people, especially in terms of their, um not and sort of like helping them like manage their like emotions and their relationship with your job. That struck me as really feminine.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with that, and I think that was actually very instrumental in me finding
mm-hmm.
some femininity, right?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um so this guy, Uncle Doomer, whose profile picture is Gandalf in a fishing cap, which, no notes, perfect. Like, you're not gonna forget that anytime soon. He he tweeted something that says stuff about
Each
women
one.
being evil. She walks through the corn leading down to the river. Her hair
Oh.
shone like gold in the hot morning sun. She took all the love that a poor boy could give her and left me to die like a fox on the run. Like a fox, like a fox, like a fox on the run. No, everyone knows the reason for my fall. A woman tempted me down in Paradise Hall. This woman tempted me, and she took me for a ride. Like a lonely fox voice, I need a place to hide. You said that's a cool song from the perspective of the corn, with the classic, what is it? The country girls make do,
Yes, yeah.
which I'm not going to include because I don't think YouTube will let me, but it is funny.
Oh, you think? It's
Well,
just an instant, it's insinuating.
I think I'm hand holding people through a lot.
Yeah.
They can Google one thing.
Yeah. That's fine.
But
That's
yeah,
fine.
so this is awesome.
I don't remember what that was. There was like that's it was actually Uncle Doomer, I guess.
Hmm.
He wrote out an English translation of what was like above that tweet is
Oh.
actually yeah, there's more above that tweet. It's a video of like this Japanese band like singing this
Oh,
song,
okay.
and everyone's like, does anyone know what they're saying? And that's what they're saying.
Oh, that's so cool.
Hmm. I'm pretty sure that's what that was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny because it totally fooled me. I was like, this is like a country song. You know, like, man, something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Twitter so much. I love the internet. Yeah, I will be sad when it's gone. I'm afraid of what's coming, but like I don't
Yeah,
know. We'll see. In terms of um, if everything is just going to turn into a bots talking to each other or not. We'll see.
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
yeah. That's definitely like, well, I don't know. Sometimes it's funny. I think that it is sort of like, I don't know. It's shitty and it isn't shittification, but it is also funny to be on Twitter having like either arguments or really heartfelt conversations with people, or like people are just like posting bait and you scroll down and then it's like like the OnlyFans girls are like, I used to have sex with this person you're talking about. It's just like, it just sort of like rubs it in how like silly and absurd everything is. So
That's why I think I like this network so much is
yeah.
it really captures the absurdity. None of the other networks do that. I mean, Instagram is basically like, I don't understand why people are on Instagram. Why would you voluntarily scroll ads? That's what it feels, right? That's
Yeah.
everyone's just making ads. Like, why would you? I don't get that. And then,
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been on Facebook in a really long time, so
Hmm. Yeah. It is a lot of just being just instrumental, just like, and like TikTok is like that too, or it's like there's so much, and it's like I think that there's something sort of like beautiful about how it's like the literal like robot AI spam is sort of not super distinguishable from just sort of people spam and people like shilling products, and then also people just sort of like bait. Like I think this is something that people don't like know.
right.
It's like people will like make bait content and people are like getting mad. It's like, I can't believe women are like this. And it's like, this is a low key an advertisement for an OnlyFans. Like you're just there because it's like you can't like advertise OnlyFans, but you can, like talk. It's like, oh well, I thought like this or that, whatever. But like, turns out if you have high standards, and like guys will fly you halfway across the world and like put you up in like this like fancy Paris motel and buy you all these things. And it's like, oh, this is an ad for a sugar baby type thing. Like this,
Right,
and
right.
you're just
And
like,
yeah,
and we're all just like pretending that it's not to get angry at it to get it more clicks. And it's like, no, this is like, and it's just all like the I don't know, it's like a crowded bazaar of like robots and shills and like hagglers, and then also just like, but it's like I feel like the whole like the rage baiting is sort of falling into that because people also rage bait for engagement because it gets you literal money,
yeah.
on Twitter
Have
and more.
you have you given in to the temptation?
No, I was when I first got monetized, it did make me self-conscious about it, and I was worried that it was going to erode the Twitter experience because I was like, I
Mhm.
would like to get paid for this and it is fun, but also then, I did find myself there was like not a lot, but there was a few things where I was like, would I actually give a shit enough to tweet this if I wasn't going to get paid for it? And then I got paid like a pretty low amount of money, and then I just sort of got used to it. So now it was like normal. I think it can break people, but I also in my mind, I think I have a pretty clear vision of what I want from Twitter. Like I have,
Hmm.
I was like, I know what I'm going. Well, that's not really true, but like on a good day, I know what I'm here for. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah,
Like,
and you have a voice, a clear voice. So it's like if you were to deviate too much from that, I think it would be weird, right? The people would
yeah.
be like, "What is he doing?" Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's yeah. And it is exciting, the idea of like getting paid for nothing,
Mhm.
you know. Especially when you like when you make as much as I do, it's like it actually does move the needle like a significant amount. It's like it can be like half to a full day's work, So
That's
it's like,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know if I've never really been able to get more than 20 likes on a tweet. I don't know why. It just doesn't happen for me. It's all right, you know.
well, you said
I
you
get a
don't.
like I get likes on my replies.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah, which
almost
is why
better.
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I suppose it wouldn't matter. Like I suppose I could get paid for the likes on my replies as well. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
a
I mean, you need to have a certain number of impressions. I think like I had like
Mhm.
some tweet that got like 34,000 likes, like just like randomly one
Wow,
day.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I think it was actually about like agency and like Down syndrome and stuff, and how it was like people don't know like they don't have a really they like the only mental models of agency that and like responsibility that they have are like adult or like totally like a baby with like literally no agency, and they have a hard time like gradienting that, you know.
Okay.
So it's like if
Uh-huh.
you have like a teenager or like someone with like Down syndrome who, they have agency and they need to, have some amount of responsibility for their own life, but they can't do like everything. That's sort of like given pole or whatever. It's like instead of not being a binary, it really like messes with people, and they have a hard time like living that out. Or with like older
Mhm.
people, and it's like
Mhm.
I've like had more than one. Like I've had people who work with disabled people or like elderly people confirm that, if they can do it themselves, they should do it themselves. Like even if it does take them like 15 minutes to tie their shoes, if you got the
Mhm.
time, they should be doing that, because kind of like Dr. Kaczynski was saying with the whole power process thing,
Mhm.
because it's
Mhm.
just like good for them. But it's like frustrating, and it's like, okay, well, if I'm in charge of this, just let me do it, and if I'm not in charge of this, then like why am I here, type thing. So it's,
Mhm.
you know but yeah, that was the first time I was actually eligible for monetization. And
That's
yeah.
exciting. That must have been exciting.
It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
But
That's cool.
I don't remember what conversation thread we're on, so let's keep scrolling. Okay. um okay, oh, this is a long tweet. I'm actually gonna pull this up. um I need a Jamie, so I can just be like, pull it up, Jamie.
Oh, yeah, right.
Wait, your at is Ruedaminute. That's so good.
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's okay. I didn't get it. That's how you pronounce that. Okay. All right. So, at first we have Robert Malka saying, "I was born to a mother who was too good for the men she dated. She, oh, I think I've actually seen this one. I didn't read it, but she's like, she'd laugh in the faces of billionaires who loved her, ripping up their round the world Concorde tickets while they sat there slack jawed. Men think, excuse me, Men think money or status is enough for these women. Nothing could be further from the truth. You don't know what it's like to be a woman who walks into a room and turns every cocky man to dust. Not with their beauty, but by crushing men at the things they do best. These are the women who want to offend a man the most, but they're looking for someone better than they are in every way. Those men are rare. Yes, there are good men, millions of dutiful, hard-working, kind men. But the best women aren't looking for good. They're looking for a force of nature. They want to feel the strength of a will that penetrates everything. This isn't about self-improvement. It's about feeling an overwhelming desire. A man who displays genuine obsession mixed with kindness and courage. My mother never found that man. I watched good men get steamrolled by her personality. Watched her maintain that stiff upper lip in the face of it all. It sobered me up. I learned what I had to be. I don't think many men have actually met such women, so they've forgotten how to chase something profound. Mom taught me that lesson every day. Sometimes in what she said, but most especially in what she couldn't find. Some tickets aren't worth the paper they're printed on, but a worthy chase is worth everything. Pose Law said, I think your mom just had serious avoidant attachment. But, okay. So that was the OP. And then Sim1, aka Simone Sied, said, people are so confused as to why I don't date, why I choose to be alone, and it's been hard to be succinct without sounding demeaning, because I don't think people fundamentally understand what it is that is constantly holding me back. I'm not even hypergamous, but everyone thinks they can buy me. It's never happened and never will. It's not about anything more than I need to feel the depth of someone's soul, the veracity of their character, the force of their nature, which is capable of imparting their will on that which they know they can change in the world. People think they are substantive. They are not. They are pieces of paper burning dimly in the warm air. It's kind of hot. Sorry, that was me. Nothing more than ants on a hill, replicated thoughts and regurgitated ideals, vortexes of complications for things that don't even actually matter. And every once in a while you find one of those incredible, exquisite creatures, but the world is cruel and selects against those who stand with gumption and strength. And they are invariably broken and selecting for something far more benign and simple than I could ever be, even in my sleep. Sometimes I can't sleep because I wonder, where did all the people go? What is wrong with me? I love deeply. But I just do so now mostly from afar, championing along other people's love because I know how rare it is to find real love, one's forever person, the thing that ultimately makes them whole in ways we never knew was possible. Okay, wow. What's the hidden reply? That's just kind of mean. I always check the hidden replies.
Yeah, me too.
It's the most like it's like the most backwards gun of all the Twitter features.
Right.
And then you said, well, this is excellently written. I think it's misguided. The key is here. Quote, I need to feel the depth of someone's soul, the veracity of their character, the force of their nature, which is capable of imparting their will on that which they know they can change in the world. Unquote. Everyone is absolutely stunning, but only some, very rare folks, are capable of being vulnerable in a superhuman way to show you all that they are, or even give a hint of it. Most of us are not, of course. Wow. This is a complicated one.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about all of those, actually.
Okay, so I think this is, I guess, it seems to be like in the vein of, I guess, like a semi-common discourse, which is
Mm.
basically where have all the good men gone for the girl bosses, to really kind of bastardize it. But, it's, yeah, I think there's, Ayla's probably the most famous one, but there's a lot of, sort of really like go-getters, women who have a hard time finding a guy, and that's for like a lot of reasons. This guy, it's interesting. I've never heard this take that Robert the OP said, which is basically
Mm.
like seemed to be, I guess his thing is like basically saying, okay, well, it's like he saw his mom reject all these guys for these reasons, and
Mm.
then he's like, okay, well, I need to like be that guy,
Mm. Which
which
is very interesting from an
Freudian.
Freudian
Yeah.
perspective, of course. Sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think it was Jung
And
that said Freud isn't wrong about everything.
no, of course, yeah. But I mean, that's a good question, right? Is in the end, was that good for him or not? I suppose he's the only one that can answer that question,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah. And I guess, hmm, yeah. Like, there's a lot of things. I think there's like a few things being like conflated here, I guess, right? Like, I feel like everyone's kind of talking about several things at once. I mean, I guess a lot of it is just like, I think you did pinpoint something which was vulnerability. I think you're absolutely right. And, there are like, it's like with like NPCs. Like, there's no actual NPCs, but there's a lot of people who want to be NPCs. You know what I mean?
Mm, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because the NPC feels strong
Yeah.
and, you know,
It looks good on
right.
paper.
Vulnerable.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no vulnerability. It's not yucky. It's not icky.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
it's safe. So, there it, and while that doesn't reflect their true nature, and that I think everybody who is trying to be that could be much, you know, more themselves if they, were vulnerable, if not totally outwardly openly with like at least the right people. Um,
Is there such a thing as vulnerability not being a good choice, not being a good direction?
yeah, I think I think I think like definitionally like vulnerable means you are open to like attack. So if you're like vulnerable with like someone who like secretly resents you or hates you and sort of like wants to tear you down, I think that can be a bad choice.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think that there's like vulnerability which is like context dependent as a good. And then I think like but I guess the being like meta vulnerable in terms of like understanding that it's like good to be vulnerable when you can and trying to like expand your comfort zone, I guess, is like always good, I think, you know. But
Yeah, right, right. It's a good general direction for life, but I definitely agree that there are certain people that maybe it might not be safe to be vulnerable
yeah.
around. And what's interesting is about the two women that were in this thread is that whether or not they actually are safe to be vulnerable around, they might be. But I think there's definitely some signaling that, hey, maybe we're not safe to be vulnerable around because, we're forces of nature and you're not, you know.
That's a really good point. I never thought about that. Like, because it's also like um going this actually reminds me of like one of the earlier tweets you were talking about being afraid to be like a leader because you're afraid of like failing, is that I think, there is something vulnerable about ambition, you know? And like,
Yes.
yeah. And I think someone was like, it was one of those like sort of like compensation things where it's like I think someone on Twitter was talking about how it was like people who are like people who say, "Oh, I can never like be this like great artist, I'm just trying to do my best," are actually secretly more prideful than people who are like, "No, I am trying to be the next Kubrick," you know?
Oh, I would love to see that. That's a very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I don't know if I could.
Yeah.
Well, Twitter search is just kind of fucked up and broken at this point, but
Yeah.
um the but yeah, it's like cuz it's like I have always been like super ambitious, and it has been humiliating sometimes,
Mm,
because
mm, mm.
I talk a lot of shit and I have really serious ambitions, and then when I make my art, I see that it's like not as good as it could be, and I see all these like mistakes and stuff and how it's like not where I want it to be, and it just kills me. Like that's why,
Hmm.
I have a short film that I'm finishing up by the end of the year, but that's why but I shot it in 2022. And part of that
Hmm.
reason, part of it was I was just a little burned out, and then also part of it was because I was upset that it wasn't as good as it could be, and I saw the writing mistakes and the directing mistakes and things like that. And I'm still gonna make it because you can't be a pussy and a cowboy, but at the same time, it's like it is it is vulnerable and it is a little embarrassing to be like, no, I wrote Iniwasano is this mangaka. He did Oyasami Pun Pun and recently Dead Dead Demons DDD Destruction, which is the only piece of art that totally understands what the psychology of people in 2020 was like and how everyone's brains were sort of broke. And he started writing it in 2014. Yeah,
Mm.
because he was just like
Okay.
on like the bleeding edge of just the collective unconsciousness or whatever. And like, but
Whoa.
yeah,
Okay, you're gonna have to send me
okay,
that
okay,
because I don't know how to
that's
write whatever you said down.
okay, okay, okay. It's a manga. I think it's
Yeah,
getting an anime adaptation. It's just like a
yeah,
manga. And it's
yeah.
finished. And it's probably it is one of the greatest works so far. So I would recommend that you read
That
it, I guess. But
that is such a fascinating thing that you're saying because yes, people say that a lot. Like, wow, that work was so prophetic. What
hmm
does it mean to be prophetic?
yeah,
It means
yeah,
to just be kind of surfing that wave of the collective unconscious, and you're
hmm
just ahead of it a little bit, above everyone else, or
yeah.
like not above, but like ahead of everyone else.
No, yeah. Like I
That is
don't
pretty
even
cool.
remember. Like I remember parts, but like I feel like if I have kids and they're like, "What was it like in like 2020?" I'm like, "You got to read
Mhm.
this." Like this guy gets it. This guy from like fucking 2014 gets it better than I did, and I lived through it. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's
It's
so
just
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like I wrote, so he had a museum opening in
Mhm.
Japan, and you could send him letters as fans. They were going to like display it, right? So I told
Mhm.
him that I was going to surpass him as a writer, and that
Hell yeah!
I was like,
Hell yeah!
yeah.
Good for you. That's awesome.
And it is a little
Wow.
cringe because I'm not because like I wrote that like before I read Dead Dead Demons, and now I'm like, oh, this guy's getting better at a faster rate than I am, right? But at the same time, I was like, thank you for your work. You've like changed my life. It's like you're like probably the best writer alive today, and like I will surpass you, you know.
That's
But
amazing. That reminds me a lot of my husband. He's like that. He is exactly like that. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, do you know who Robert Fripp is?
I don't think
He's
so.
a, he's a guitarist. Well, but like really,
Okay.
more of, way more than that. But I don't know if you know King Crimson, but it's a
Wait,
prog rock
the
band.
21st Century Schizoid Man that
Yes,
Kanye
yes.
sampled? Yeah.
Okay, so Robert Fripp is the main guy, right? Yeah,
Uh huh.
and I feel like you're the story of you and this writer. That's
Uh
like the
huh.
story of my husband and Fripp, right? And
Okay.
this kind of like, I will best you, old man. Like, I will, you know what I mean? Like, I worship you and I will best you. The
Uh
kind of,
huh.
and yes, there's something extremely attractive about that energy in someone, seeing that passion and seeing that fire and
Yeah.
seeing that self-belief, right?
hmm
Maybe that's what these ladies are getting at.
Yeah.
Maybe
But
that's
like
all they
I
want,
wouldn't.
right?
But there was for most of my life. Well, not most, but there was a big period in my life where it was a little too vulnerable. Like now I'm okay. Like I can kind of you know. Well, actually, I probably can't take any criticism of that. So if you want to call me cringe, I will be blocking you. But at least I can be open enough to like say it, and then just block the
Uh-huh.
people who are mean to me. But you know, but there was a big part of my life where I couldn't like it felt too vulnerable to like say, and like
I can't imagine saying that myself, right? But I admire it in people who can,
well,
you
thank you.
know? Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. And I mean, I think that's where I'm trying to get to, right? To
Mm-hmm.
have that self-belief. I actually like, because we were talking, I was nervous to be on this today. And then because you rescheduled a little bit, I almost was like, oh, like, I was like, do I want to do it today? Because I've, I was faltering in my self-belief today.
Mm-hmm.
And, and right now, I think the biggest task in front of me right now is learning how to hold on to self-belief and learning how to grow it, you know?
Mm-hmm. I I think that's really cool. I don't think
Mm,
that my statement was a statement of self belief. I think it
mm.
was more of a statement of like desire, right? Like
Well,
I'm
maybe
not.
they're the same thing, right?
Well, they feel one feels like I think one feels like outcome dependent, like, and the other one feels like outcome independent. I think it's like one is like really like really wanted to be like okay like I want to surpass this guy is like it's like okay
So
that's where
for
like the goal is
me,
right.
for most of my life, I did
Mm-hmm.
not let myself dream because I didn't believe enough in myself to let myself dream.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's where I'm seeing the connection between the two, you know? Like in order for you to even have this very passionate desire that you have to believe in
Mm-hmm.
yourself to some degree, to a certain degree, right? I think.
A little bit. I mean I don't think I'm well I mean like I don't think I'm gonna be better than Inu Asano but I will be.
Ah,
But that's the target like that's where I'm like aiming at, you know what I mean?
sure, sure. Sure.
So it's like outcomes belong to God, right? But I'm, but at the same time,
Can you explain that a little bit?
it's like like outcomes belong to God. I think it's like a tweet that I saw. I don't remember who said it, but it was really good. And
Mhm.
it's like I guess it's sort of like if you're praying for something or if you're like trying to do something, it's like you have to sort of like it's like you can't pray and say it's like oh God make this happen by this date or we're gonna have a problem. It's like that's not how it works, right?
Okay,
You
okay,
can't say
gotcha,
like
gotcha.
God, I need this on my desk by end of day, right? Like no. it's like
Right.
it's like this is what I want and like approaching God is like I don't know, like I kind of feel like approaching God to prayer is sort of it's like requires you to like formulate yourself into like the like actually like the right not right but it's like if you're like asking something from God, it's like you got to come correct. So it's like it's like it's never like the first draft of a prayer is like the one you say. You know what I mean?
Mm,
It's like so first it's like this better fucking happen, and it's like no, I guess I shouldn't swear if I'm praying to God, and it's like okay, well this make this happen. Then it's like well outcomes belong to God, and it's like well I want this to happen, please let this happen, and even if it doesn't happen, I accept like the outcomes because it's like the outcomes belong to God, but this is what I want, and this is why, and it's like, and then it's also it's just sort of like it's like contorting yourself into like the making the thing happen shape. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
It's yes, I
Okay.
think that it's something about, it's interesting the idea of how learning how to pray is, yeah, kind of learning how to deal with desire and have it not be a clinging thing,
Yeah.
y- right? And
Yeah.
instead be a transmogrifying thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like there was this one pickup artist blog that I read a little bit of like a long time ago where he was like confidence in approaching women isn't about confidence that they're going to go out with you. It's like confidence that you're going to be okay no matter what and it doesn't really matter. You know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
what like is actually like attractive cuz actually being like someone just being like overly confident that they're going to go out with you is sort of can be a little like weird and off-putting because it sort of feels like there's like oh this guy's just not listening to me that's not cool you know, versus someone who's just like totally like secure and just being like, well, I know that I'm awesome either way, so this is what I want. And then, you know, even if, you know, and that doesn't mean it's
Which
going to happen, right?
which in the end, getting there feels better than getting the girl,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, getting the girl feels pretty fucking good, but you know, but yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
but yeah.
I used to watch the some of those, like, Mystery had a show, right? Do you remember that?
Mystery High Show?
There was a pickup artist show, reality show. I love that show,
No.
man. It was so funny.
No, I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mike Millman was like the only. I think he probably got. I think he got Me Too'd, and he also had self-admitted issues. But he was like he just approached it like super autistically in a way that I think is one of the only guys who was like actually beneficial. I mean, someone made a point that it's like even no matter how big pickup artistry was, it was encouraging interaction with the world, which just makes it sort of qualitatively better than like the incel black pill sort of culture that followed it. And so it's like, you know, even if it is bad advice, getting out there and making mistakes is still like leagues above like sitting on the couch and being angry or resentful, right? So even if it's terrible advice, but his advice was actually like he's like, no, listen, it's like here's the thing, it's like if you go up to like a group of 100, if you like, if like, what is the odds if you just talk to some woman that she's going to give you her phone number, and then what are the odds after that that she's actually going to want to like sleep with you? It's like, well, the odds of her actually giving you her number, it's probably like maybe what, like 7%, whatever, 5%, and then it's like, well, the actual odds for actually sleeping with you are probably closer to like 2%, which just means you just have to ask out 10 women a day every business week, and then you're sleeping with one new woman every week. It's just like, do the numbers. And I was like, wait a minute. It's a little
There you go.
sociopathic, but also it's like, he's like, no, it's like and he's like, yeah, and you don't actually change who you are, because who you are is it's just going to behave to a group of seven, like, you know, like another two women out of the 100. It's not going to increase it from 2% to 3%. It's just going to like make it a different 2%. And you want it to be people who aren't annoying to be around. So just be yourself when you're doing it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. No,
That's
it's really
good.
good. It's really good
Yeah.
advice. And I was like, yeah, it was, it's,
And I think the numbers thing, I mean, I think the numbers thing in the end, if that's what gets you out the door and talking to people, good.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And
that's
I
I got
think a
no
lot of
problem with that.
people do. It is hard to internalize that you will be okay with rejection without being rejected a lot. You know, like it's hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
So
know. I think, yeah, I wonder. I haven't had to. I mean, obviously women have to deal with rejection in other ways, but
yeah, yeah,
um, yeah, it's interesting. It's a tough thing, and I think in this day and age, I think it's a little bit difficult to kind of bring that back, right? Bring back the cold approach,
oh
you
yeah, yeah.
know? Like, I but I think there's a libidinal urge amongst
Hmm.
women for that to come back, you know?
Yeah. I think
Hmm.
what made I did like dabble in that, but like I think like something why I actually don't like, I guess I think that might be like a good, I guess, step, but I think that something that's more, I think like the next level, I think like that sort of like approach 100 women is like it can be, it's like pretty life-changing advice for guys who haven't asked out like 10. Like Goblin Odds had a poll and she was
Yeah,
like, men, how many women have you asked out in your life? And like something like 70-80% were like less than 10, and I'm like,
right.
what are we
It's
doing?
just, yeah,
Like,
it's gone, dude. It's
yeah, it's
gone.
like what I was like, I felt like a
Yeah.
crazy person, but but after like, you know, a certain level where you don't have any issue with like asking out women, you know, it is actually like, it's a little thrilling, but it's not terrifying. I think then like,
Mm.
I think understanding that people are psychic and that, you know, people want you to know if they want you to hit on them is like kind of and then sort of like opening. It's like sort of like I don't know. I feel like that's like the next level. Like there's all these like I'm like a little autistic. I'm like diet autistic, you know, like not that autistic.
Same.
But there was this.
I
It's
like
like
that diet autistic. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Like I would not call myself autistic at vibe camp, right? Like that's
Right.
But if I'm like with a bunch of like just like people on the street or whatever, then I'd be like But I think that the oh, where was I going with this? Oh, I think that there is like a lot of like intuition and social ability that I had, but I just didn't trust. And then once people were like,
Mm-hmm.
"No, you
Yeah.
can like," well, it was like probably the best piece of actually dating advice was one that Darby gave me because like she helped me out with that a little bit, like right after college, and I was like, "Is it okay for me to like hit on waitresses?" And she's like, "You can hit on anybody you want at any point in time, at any place. Just stop if they don't like it." And I was like,
Okay.
"Oh, I never thought about the fact that I could tell if people like it or not."
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay,
It's
okay.
like, oh no, yeah, it
Uh,
is obvious whether people.
right.
It's like you
People
just
want
have
a
an ink.
rule.
Yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
like you just
But it's not a rule.
no, yeah, it's not. You just talk to them and
Yeah.
you kind of like put a little bit of energy out there, and you just it's like okay, it's like you can't tell, but it's like well, if you had to guess, you probably have a guess, and then you can just like refine that ability to guess, and you can actually get really good at like understanding people and reading people. And it's just like this ability that like autistic people just don't believe in because it's like literally like magic exists, and autists are just like the skeptics where they're like that doesn't exist. Like I can't do that. And it's like well if you try and you do a little bit of trial and error you'll find out.
Yeah.
I mean I don't know, you can get pretty autistic. So I'm not saying that everybody could do this, but I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand. So I think that now when I like hit on women, I choose to believe that I can read their minds and read their signals, and
Yeah.
then I usually can. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think that's part of the whole vibe experience, right? Is kind
yeah,
of all these people learning about what vibes are. I didn't really even know what vibes were until Teapot kind of started talking about it, and I was like, oh,
hmm,
I guess that's true, isn't it?
yeah,
I had a more I had a more like I was putting a bunch of rules and being like, oh, if you go to a gathering and too many people are four people are in that corner, then it's going to be a bad party. But if five people are in that corner, it's going to be a good party. It's like, no, that's not how things work. You can't,
yeah,
like that's you got to just feel it, and that's a
yeah,
completely different situation. So
yeah. And I think a lot of yeah, yeah. But basically, that's why I don't, just ask out random women is because I can tell if they want me
mm,
to hit on them. So I'll talk to like strangers like all the time, and also just because I'm extremely like extroverted and stuff, and I will talk to women and be, kind of like put some like energetic feelers out there, but I don't actually have to like get rejected to know whether they would reject me or if they're interested in me. You know what I
right.
mean? So it's
Yeah,
like,
that's hard. It's hard to know if you're not willing to look people in the eye, though, right?
well,
Yeah, I
I
think
have the
that's
too much
that's
eye
what.
autism rather than the no eye contact autism.
Okay,
So
that's good. That's
but writ
good.
large, that is
Yeah,
true.
yeah. Yeah. I have hope. It seems that people are learning, certain things,
Yeah,
and
and
that. Yeah. So.
yeah,
Hmm.
I think and like also like if you know I was too like internet poisoned that like the first time I told a woman I was like your hair looks nice today and she said thank you and I was like she's not mad what the it's just like there's so much like fucking garbage out there and if you actually just like you know talk to people in real life you'll figure out that like I know people say this all the time but especially about dating advice and like sex war advice it's just totally like absurd. People are like
Yeah.
you will get arrested if you hit on women in public and I'm like no, like I've hit on women in front of their fathers before. It's fine. You could just do things like you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Is that really something people are saying?
I have seen that said, yeah. Because when I was
Oh my
talking about
gosh.
the what, like I think like I've tweeted maybe more than once about the advice where it's like hit on anybody at any point, in any time, in any place, and just stop if they don't like it. People are like, no,
Mm.
you can't do that. You'll get like people like, oh, I mean, not at work because like HR and it's like all this shit, and it's like, no, you can't. Like you can't just stop if they don't like it, and everything will be okay. Like I've never gotten in trouble for hitting on anyone ever. I think I've made women uncomfortable slightly, and then but then we go our separate ways, and they're fine.
Right. Yeah.
But like if I say this, there is a lot of people, not most people, but a lot of people are like, this is dangerous advice, and I'm like,
No, no.
no, yeah,
Hmm. Well, I'm probably nearing the end of my
yeah,
time here. But it
yeah.
was
Seems like a good
so
place to end
fun.
it. It was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. I ended up talking more about myself than I planned on, but I also had a lot of fun. So
No, yeah, that's great. No, I love that it was a conversation. It was great.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, in terms of like work projects and stuff, really quick, like just to wrap it up, um,
Mm.
like who should, like, what kind of person should reach out to like work with you? Who might be listening?
Oh, hmm. That's interesting. I'm just, I'm open to talk to people who, want to who are curious about like something like what's good ATX and, yeah, like that would be cool. I'm also building the social radar. What that does is that it's an app that notifies you when people are talking about some like so let's say you're a movie maker, right?
Yeah,
So you might be looking out for some clients who might pay you to make movies, right?
yeah.
So my iOS app will kind of monitor Reddit for you. Currently just Reddit. I'm working on Twitter, but monitor Reddit for you and notify you if there's someone being like, hey, like I'm thinking about funding a small film project or whatever.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So exactly. So that is that's kind of the app that I'm working on getting launched pretty soon, probably in the next like week or so, helping small business owners just get more clients and have the
Okay,
notifications ready to go on their phone. So if anybody who's interested in that, you can reach out to me and yeah.
okay. So like software developers or people who are just like,
Uh, I'm more looking for like small businesses, right? People
okay.
who are looking
Oh,
for
who might want to
customers.
like use the app or beta test it or something?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, that and just anybody. Obviously, I love to talk philosophy. I love to talk psychology. I love to talk. We didn't get a chance to talk about AI, but that's
No,
like fun, and I like to talk
yeah.
about that and think about that. So just
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, it was very nice to meet you, and I hope that the we didn't lose too much of it with the audio malfunction. And
Oh, I hope so too. Oh my gosh. Okay.
we'll see. I'll make it. I'll cobble together something. But yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll talk to you later about all this.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right. It
good.
was good to talk to
That
you.
was good talking to you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.